Tiffany, I'm so excited to have you here today on Flow with the Grow. I am so excited to dive into your story and talk about your book and everything. So I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my message today.
Could you first just tell us more about who you are, what you do, all of those things?
Sure. Well, my name is Tiffani Patlán, and I am a health and wellness coach. I am all about helping other women that are battling through life that just seem so stuck and they just cannot rise above from the place that they're at, wondering, why do these things keep happening to me over and over and over again? That's where I come in to help you discover your own unique path to healing and happiness. And I also, as well, have a podcast, Tiffani Talks, where I talk about everything from holistic health, healing to helping others, because I have a very giving, heart to serve others. And I'm also a best-selling author of the book, Unlocking Your Ability to Heal. And it was really important for me to put my story in this book because I used to think it was my story, but it's really much bigger than that. This is actually for the world. So that's what I'm here. I'm in my mission to spread the word of truth and healing.
Yeah, I love that point of view where you said it's not just your story anymore, it's like for the world. And there's so many people out there that probably have a similar story. And so it's kind of like it's their story too. And then it's a way for them to relate and for you to like give them, like you talk about your light and guide them and all of that. I'm curious, how did you come up with the title?
I was actually talking with my book coach, Christine Gale. We were just chit-chatting, talking, and in talking to her, I actually said that. And she stopped me and pointed it out that I said that because I wasn't even thinking of that. Because there's actually a book called The Courage to Heal that I had picked up. It's for sexual abuse survivors. And I had picked it up a long time ago. And I had thought about that, the courage to heal, because I feel like people need courage. But since that's already taken, then unlocking your ability to heal. And it sounds so good because the 3 keys to wellness are mental, physical, and spiritual health. And you need those keys to unlock your ability to heal. So it just worked out.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Because I remember too when I was reading the book, I loved the title and I became curious how you came up with that. But it's true. It's like I feel like everyone has that ability, but we
Yes.
need maybe someone else to help us unlock it. So it's a very powerful title and message. And I was reading your story and throughout your book, and I just was wowed by everything that you have been through. So, can you maybe start at the beginning?
Sure. Well, when I started writing my book, I basically had to go back as far as I can remember. And I thought that my trauma started the first time that I was incestuously raped by my 23-year-old cousin at 12 years old. But I learned that it goes much further back. In retrospect and just learning everything I learned, I realized that I was actually raised in a very toxic environment. And as little kids, we think the life that we're living is normal because we don't know any better. So we adopt what our parents teach us. We watch what we're allowed to watch. We get our speech and speak and everything from them. And that's basically what I did. I realize now that my mother, is suffering a lot. I believe she has anxiety disorder as well as depression. Otherwise, she wouldn't drink herself to sleep every night. I know my father used to be an alcoholic. He used to drink. I remember watching him drink. He wasn't a violent drunk. That doesn't mean that it makes it okay. He was very withdrawn. He was a very good provider. He would work, but there was no coming home to, hey, honey, how was your day? Or a hug or a kiss, or there was really not much affection from either of my parents. Although I do recall my brother and I, giving our parents a hug and a kiss goodnight, things like that. But it wasn't like the way I parent my children now. We weren't raised being praised. I received, all A's in a report card, but this one time I got a B and my father criticized me for that. So if you can imagine, just that one instance has stuck with me my entire life. And I feel like I've always had to go above and beyond, overachieving just to be able to make him proud. But that's kind of silly, in retrospect, when you think about it. but you don't think about these things, at the time when you're young and when you're growing up and as you get older, you don't think about those things. But I also had an older brother. He's my half brother. I only say that so you guys can get a picture, but I've always looked at him as my real brother. I've never referred to him as anything else or thought of him as anything else. But my mother had told him that about his biological father when he was way too young. I mean, kids are not able to understand things. They're not supposed to experience trauma and understand how to solve it and what to do with it. Can you just imagine what my little brother was probably thinking, that he's unwanted? His own father didn't even want him. I can only imagine. He's so little. And my mother didn't know how to help him. She couldn't even help herself, so I became his target. He was very violent with me. He would watch wrestling and he didn't respect me. There was no respect for me as a young little girl. He was very rough with me and violent. He would scare me into tears. And I have to be honest with you, sometimes I still get scared at night, in the dark and things. Like sometimes it still affects me. It's something I'm working through still. Even though I've experienced so much healing, we're never done. And I realized that a lot of these things are stemming back from when my brother would scare the crap out of me. I mean, it wasn't just a funny scare. It's like he would do it in an evil way where I would literally be terrified. I would cry. Like that was very traumatizing for me. And, some people have scoffed and said, oh, sibling rivalry, oh, it's a rite of passage, this and that. No, my friends, it's not. Depending on, we all experience things differently. So maybe the way your brothers teased you might not have affected you in a traumatic way, but it's not like that for everybody. It's different per person, and it depends on how you're treated. So I grew up that way. I was very smart, very bright, made friends at school, and everything I thought to myself was pretty normal, except for not being allowed to question things. I remember wanting to run away. I felt misunderstood. I felt like I didn't have a voice. I wasn't allowed to question, which was a huge thing because I think that affected me later on in life. I just felt like I wasn't protected. My mom didn't spend time with me, quality time with me. She was always cooking and cleaning. So I feel like in her mind, she was doing a good job. She did the best that she could, what she knew how to do. But there was a lot of things that I didn't get as a child that I really, 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 really needed. Protection is one of them. My mother and I did not have a very good, healthy relationship. And so by the time I was around 10, 11 years old, I started to cut myself. And that happened because my mother and I didn't get along. And I remember it being morning and I hadn't brushed my teeth, brushed my hair. I was still barefoot, like wearing pajamas, and she kicked me out of the house. And I didn't have anywhere to go. I don't know, what am I supposed to do with myself, And so there was a parking lot in the apartment complex that we lived in, and there was a wall, which I hopped over the wall because I didn't want anybody to see me. And over there was just a big deserted area. So I'm just wandering around the desert in the hot desert Vegas sun, and I see a whole bunch of broken beer bottles on the ground. So I figure, okay, I'm just going to pick one up, and I don't know where I got this idea from. I've never seen it, never heard about cutting or self-harm or anything like that. I was just angry. I was so incredibly angry, and a child shouldn't experience that kind of anger at that age, but I did. And I carved in my arm, I hate mom. And looking back, I realized it's not that I hated my mother. I can actually say now that I love and I miss my mother, but she's made her choices and I have to protect myself and my family. But it wasn't that I hated her. It was that I was crying out for her. I needed her. I needed her guidance. I needed her understanding. I needed her affection. I needed my mother, and I didn't have that. She was there, but she wasn't there, if that makes any sense. She was very high strung. My parents would spank us with that 18-inch ruler. There were times where they would just keep going. And even though we're screaming and begging them to stop, they wouldn't stop. That's wrong. That's crossing the line. And I've learned, and I have that in my book, that when you are carrying any type of mental illness yourself, it's easier to take things out on your kids when you're angry. And I feel like that's what my parents did, but they didn't know they were doing that. But I experienced the aftermath of it. So I grew up feeling unloved, unwanted. My voice didn't matter. What I wanted didn't matter. If I didn't do a good enough job, I was going to be told so. And I just started, acting out, as my parents would say. But then my parents took us to Texas to visit my cousin, not my cousin, my aunt and uncle, but that's where my cousin lived, one of my cousins, the 20th-year-old cousin that I had. And it was then that he raped me. And I remember sitting in the bathroom floor, because as soon as he was done with me, he ushered me out of the room. And I remember just sitting on the floor, confused, like wondering what just happened. Nobody was awake. It was a new house. It wasn't my house. I'd never been there before. My mom and dad weren't there. Like I felt so alone. And I remember just hugging myself, sitting on the floor in the bathroom, and I didn't know what to think, what to do. I was beside myself. I don't remember what happened after that, to be honest. I don't remember where I went to sleep. I don't remember any of that. I do remember the next morning waking up, asking if they could take me to my grandparents' house on my father's side of the family, because this was my mother's side of the family, and both sides live in Texas. So they agreed, and I felt safe there. I love my grandfather with all my heart. And I always remember him paying attention to me. He would always make me laugh. I would sit on his lap. Like he gave me that attention that I was so desperately seeking from my parents. So I loved him so very much. So I went there, and the next thing I know, it's nighttime. I'm sitting with my youngest cousin and we're watching TV. She goes to the restroom. And the next thing I know, my uncle, who I have never had any reason to fear, he was the fun uncle. I remember him being great and fun and all that. I'm laying on the couch watching TV. He comes over and puts his arm on the couch, and he kind of leans over towards me. And without saying anything, he starts kissing me on my neck. And I'm like, and my body froze. Because when I first experienced my rape incident, I experienced what they call tonic immobility. And that's like a possum playing dead. It's where you just get paralyzed and you freeze. And so I felt that same thing happening to me with my uncle. When he did that, my body just froze. And I think he felt that because he like went up and he looked at me. And he goes, "What, you don't want me to?" And I'm like thinking in my head, what the hell do you mean? Do you not know who I am? Like and all I could do was muster a little like that, like a shake of my head, like barely shaking my head because I was paralyzed. And my cousin came back, and that's when he got up and acted like nothing. And I was so upset. Like I felt I was not okay. I'm like, why is this happening? First my cousin, and now this? Like, what is going on? I told my cousin. She said, well, maybe we should go tell my mom. And my aunt lived in my grandparents' house up on the top level. So we went up there and I told her, and the response I got was something along the lines of, well, you shouldn't be staying up late, kind of making me feel like it was my fault. And nothing was done. She didn't do anything. So went to bed. Next morning, sitting on the couch, living room, and I had my little baby cousin, she's so cute, just baby babbling with her, having fun with her. So as I'm sitting here, right in front of me is the front door, and my uncle walks in. He looks at me and he says, "What's the matter with you? You look like you've seen a ghost." And it was then that I realized I must have had a scary look on my face, like fear, because of, what he had just done to me. He made it seem like he didn't remember. It was really strange. And I just didn't like the way that I felt. And I was like, this is wrong. Like, this is wrong. Like, I need to do something. And I didn't know what to do. And my grandfather was nearby in his office. And I was like, I need to tell my grandpa. I need to tell him. And I didn't want to. I want to tell my sweet, wonderful grandfather this, but I had to. I just felt like I had to. So I did. And I've never seen this look on his face before. Like he was not happy. I'm used to him, making me laugh, smiling, I've never seen this look on his face. He was mad. And he asked me to go into my grandmother's room to repeat it to her. And I was already really uncomfortable saying it the first time. So then I had to do it again. And then they brought my uncle into the room. So it was like a domino effect. I'm just getting more and more closed up. And so by the time I told him, I was like, "Oh yeah, you were just touching me and stuff." And he like leans over to touch my arm. And I remember like moving away from him because it's like I wanted to be like, "Don't touch me." Like, hello, like, what are you doing? And that was it. To my knowledge, that was it. Nothing else was ever done. So if you can imagine, why would I even bother bringing up what happened with my cousin? Why would I bother bringing anything up. I thought what was happening to me was wrong, but nothing happened. So I'm back in Las Vegas, living life. But if you can imagine, I was acting out. My parents didn't have conversations with me. They didn't talk to me. My mother attempted, but she didn't talk with me. She talked at me. And I remember her saying to me, I want you to come to me when it's your first time. I want you to come to me. You know, she's having this speech with me. And I'm just sitting there like so angry, just like, you know, pissed off. Like, so I screamed at her. And I was like, it's too late for that. She was oblivious. And she looked at me. She's like, what? Oh my gosh. And she actually hugged me. And I remember feeling weird. Like, why are you hugging me? Like, it's not like we're that affectionate with each other, number one. Her response was different than everyone else. So I was just utterly confused. Seriously, I'm just like, okay. But I was still mad, but I remember it softened my heart a little that she hugged me and she was crying and she was really upset. She asked me who, and I told her. And she has told me later on that she called my aunt. She threatened to call the cops. They hid him. But I don't know if any of that's true. I don't recall. I don't know anything. That's all I know. So nothing really ever came out of that. I just had more trauma, more problems. I started drinking. I actually went into my parents' liquor cabinet, grabbed a glass of liquor. It was the Seagram 7 whiskey. I remember the big red 7. I remember seeing it. I didn't know anything about drinking. So I filled up this really big tall glass of liquor and I sat in my bedroom, plugged my nose and like chugged a lot of it. I don't think I finished it. I probably would have. I did get drunk really fast though, if you can imagine. I'm only a 13, 14-year-old girl at this time. My school bus is about ready to come. So I walk down the stairs across the street to my school bus and I was already drunk. I was told I was sitting in the middle of the street laughing at the wall. They had a fire drill on the bus. But after I got picked up a couple more stops and my boyfriend, who I was in an active sexual relationship with because of my past, he graciously carried me off the bus because I couldn't walk myself off the bus. Like, I don't understand why the school bus driver didn't see that, how he didn't smell me. Like, I think my friends were hiding it pretty well. I don't know. And so if you can imagine, things like that just happened. Once at school, the nurse called my mother and I remember the shock on her face. Like, she was just shocked. But why didn't she ever talk to me and ask me why I did it? Like, I don't remember that conversation. It's almost like they just did not know what to do. And they just looked at me as a problem child. My stepmother refers to me as a wild child, that I was a wild child, but it's like, you guys have it all wrong. Now, when I look at other kids and they're acting out, the first thing I think of is, what is it? What happened to them? What is it that they're going through? What are they carrying? Because kids don't just normally react or act out for no reason. There is always a reason. But my life, did not get better after that. One time my mother and I got into a really crazy argument and she stormed out of the room. And I remember feeling that same feeling, misunderstood. My voice wasn't being heard. And I'm just, year after year after year, and I'm just collecting more and more and more traumatic experiences. I remember feeling so angry. It almost felt like the devil himself was inside of me. I mean, I've never felt that way before that I can recall. It was just like I could kill someone. Like, I honestly felt that angry. So I was punching my window, my glass window, and we lived on the second story in an apartment. And I remember punching the glass and it wouldn't break. And that pissed me off even more. So I made it a point to break the window. And then I got scared that my parents were going to hear it. So I hurried as fast as I could and I jumped off and jumped out of my 2-story bedroom window to run away. And when I landed, they said I was lucky that I didn't lose my finger because when I landed on the glass in a way where it cut me, had blood running down my arm, ran to my boyfriend's house. He's freaking out. His dad's freaking out. You have this psycho girlfriend, probably he was thinking, now I know why his parents were the way that they were. I mean, I have sons, and if they were involved with a girl who was traumatic, had so many problems, I don't know what I would do. Now I know better, so I would probably help her. But people just didn't know what to do. So I understand now why he didn't want me, around his son. But the next thing you know, my parents show up at that house. My father's angry as all hell. He grabs me by my arm really, really hard, and he's taking me to the car. They take me to the hospital. My mother's standing there crying while they inject numbing stuff to fix my finger. Then I'm admitted into a mental hospital, and I was there for 2 weeks. But something that I remember about being there is that they had an event where they invited everybody's family into like this big circle, and everybody was talking. And I'll never forget how giddy I felt. I was so excited because my parents and my family, my mother, my father, my brother, they were all coming to visit me. And I remember that. And looking back again, it's like, wow, that just goes to show you how hungry I was for attention, for just positive, loving, caring attention. And to me, it meant that they cared about me because they're going out of their way and they're coming. You know, my mind was not even thinking that they're here to support you because you have issues, Tiffani. That's not what I was thinking. But the next thing you know, my parents took me out. Only 2 weeks, and I don't know why. I think I know why. There was another girl that was there talking about how she was hearing voices. And I don't know if my parents thought, well, those kids are crazy. My kid's not crazy, so she doesn't need to be in there. I don't know. That's just a thought. But they took me out, and life did not get any better for me because I never got any help. I was still suffering with all of this trauma. I mean, I was trying so hard to have a relationship with my mom. I knew she loved classic rock, as did I, you know, from listening to it growing up. So Peter Frampton and REO Speedwagon were in concert, and I had some money. So I bought some tickets, and I asked her if she wanted to go. Of course, she said yes. We went. It was really strange because my mother was drinking. I don't know if she was drunk by then. She had a couple beers, and I had a cigarette because I had already been smoking. And she like wasn't really paying attention to me. And I was like, hey, can I hold one of your beers? And so I did. And then I started drinking it. She didn't say anything. She didn't get mad at me. It was weird. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm an adult. I'm like everybody else. Because it's not like there was young kids there. You know, I was among the adults with my mother. I remember too, she was helping me get dressed because together her and I look like sisters because my mom looks very young. A lot of people have said that I look like her. And I used to hate that because, you know, I was like, I don't want to be associated anything to do with her, you know. It still bugs me. I can't lie. Like there's like a little tiny underlying thing where it's like, yes, I know everybody says I look like my mom, but you know, it doesn't go any deeper than that. And that was because of the pain that's attached to my mother. But the next thing you know, we're at this concert, I'm smoking and drinking. It's time to leave. My father had dropped us off, so he was supposed to pick us up. But instead, we're going home. We're getting in a truck, a stranger's truck. This guy approached us. My mother's talking to him. She gives him a fake name. And I'm just standing here observing, like, what is going on? Who is this guy? Why is no one talking to him? Why is she giving him a fake name? Like, it was weird. And then we're getting into his truck. I'm a child. I'm a teenager, a young teenager. I have a mother who I'm supposed to obey. So I'm looking to my mother and I'm following her in this truck. Next thing you know, we're at another casino. She's over there talking to this guy. And this 32-year-old man is over here talking to me. I told him how old I was. Because I didn't know that I should lie or this or that. I didn't know I had no business being in this environment, but I didn't know that. So I'm over here just telling the truth. This guy's listening to me. So whatever he asked me, I said, and then he gives me a pill. I don't know what he gave me. And here I am taking the pill. I don't know what it was. To this day, I have no idea what it was, but I took it. The next thing I know, I don't remember the drive to their house, but I remember being at their house. And I remember my mother was on one of the guys' beds and they were fully clothed and they were on the bed and talking. And I'm standing there in the corner of the room, like, didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to do. I felt so awkward, but I'm looking to my mother. So I copied her. I walked around the bed and laid down on the other side of that guy, just like she did, because I didn't know what else to do. Next thing I know, this 32-year-old guy comes to the doorway and he has a pipe full of weed. And I'm like, oh, weed, like, I know what that is. I like that, whatever. So I went with him and I don't remember what happened after that. But I do remember having an active sexual relationship with this 32-year-old man after that. My mother would take me to his house. She would visit with that guy. I would visit with this guy. I think looking back, I believe that my mother was trying to see if she could find a way out of the marriage. Because shortly after that, my parents ended up getting divorced. So this is just trauma building, and collecting, and I'm still collecting it. Still haven't gotten help. Traumatic experience of violence. I mean, there's mental abuse, the physical abuse. I mean, I even experienced that at the hand of my father, who doesn't remember this incident. He actually told me that he does not remember. And my father being an alcoholic kind of makes sense. That doesn't mean that it didn't happen. I remember. I know it happened because there's police reports that I had black eyes. They took me from juvie. Of all the times that they would take me to juvie, because I was a wild child, and threw me in there for 3 days, threatening to call my parents and threaten them with neglect. And I'm like, why are you telling me this? They're the ones that aren't answering the phone. Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm just sitting here. No one cares about me. That's what I truly felt. And you know what? It was confirmed when one of those ladies came in and started telling me, well, I need a phone number. Nobody's answering the phone. How come nobody cares about you? She actually said that to me. So I internalized that. I truly believed it. I mean, other people can see that I'm not being cared for. I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of being cared for. So as you see, not only was I collecting trauma, but I was getting confirmation that I deserved to be mistreated, that I was unworthy, that I wasn't important, all these things. But this time was different because they took me somewhere new. And it was called Child Haven. And it's a place where I guess they just find kids that have no place to go. And I remember this being like a highlight of my life because I had a warm bed to sleep in. I had clean food to eat. I was being homeschooled. I was allowed to be around other girls my age. I was being taken care of. And that's huge for me because prior to that, I had been homeless. I know what it's like to not have a place to sleep. There was a power box and my boyfriend and I were wandering the streets. He chose to be homeless with me because I had nowhere to go and his parents wouldn't let me stay there. They didn't want me to have anything to do with him. And so he slept in the gutter while I slept on top of the power box because it was warm. And the cops came and were called again because somebody called, they thought we were dead. They thought I was fried on the box. I wasn't though. His father came to pick him up. I ended up, I don't know where I ended up that time, probably in West Care. There's a lot of places where I was always picked up and thrown into. So I know what it's like to be homeless, not having a place to sleep, not having a place to be, wandering the streets, of Las Vegas at night. That's why I would entertain drugs because, especially meth, because with meth, you're wired, you're awake, and I didn't have a place to sleep. So that actually helped me in a weird way. And I didn't have any food to eat and it, suppresses your appetite. So there was that, but it led me into more dangerous situations because the people who were providing me with the drugs, it was almost like expected to be a form of payment. At every opportunity, I was sexually abused and I didn't fight back. There were times where I remember laying on the ground, tears streaming out of my eyes because I didn't want what was happening to me to happen. And this one time I knew that there was somebody else in the house. And I remember telling myself, just scream, Tiffani, just scream, just scream, just scream. And I could not do it. And that's why tears were rolling down my eyes. And I was just silent while this man is on top of me doing his thing. And that just kept happening to me so many times. And so after being in Child Haven, same thing, in there for like 2 weeks. Next thing you know, my mother's picking me up. She's got a new guy with her. And then I'm back out on the street. She should have just left me there. She wasn't taking care of me. She didn't have the ability to take care of me. She didn't want to take care of me, whatever. Why did you pick me up? Like, she should have just left me there and she didn't. So I'm back out on the street, more drugs, more sexual abuse, more physical abuse, more mental abuse, in all the ways, just collecting. So if you can imagine, they were just clear throughout my 20s, just getting drunk. I did what I learned. I learned how to work. That's what people did. They worked and they went to the bar and got drunk. So that's what I did. And I noticed that helped me because it numbed me out. But that's a lie. It's not helping you. You think it is, but it's not. It just numbed it because then the next morning I would wake up and it's still there. But Remember that overachieving I talked about? I became somebody who got very, very busy. I would work 2 jobs. I would overwork. I would work overtime. I wouldn't take time off. I was like the one in the office amongst all these other people that always had my paid time off because I never took the time off. Like, what am I going to go do? I'm just going to get drunk. Like, I didn't have a life. I didn't live. I just did what I was taught. I went to work. I worked, busied my mind. If I was at home, I would be cleaning, or I was always in and out of relationships. I never learned how important it is that before you get into a relationship, to heal, to make sure that you are the best version of yourself before you even think about getting to know somebody. Man, all the times that I had sex on the first date, I look back and I'm like, oh, my poor Tiffani, what were you thinking? But I have so much grace for myself because look at my past. And I made so many silly, dumb decisions. But it wasn't because I was dumb or stupid. It wasn't because of me in any way. It was because of what I had endured and the things that I was not taught. So in and out of toxic relationships, I'm working 2 jobs, and I ended up getting pregnant. And I remember being so happy and excited because I love babies. Babies are amazing. They're so beautiful and cute and chubby. I love babies. And I was happy. Granted, I had no business being a mom at that time. I was still doing drugs. I was drinking. This guy that I was with was not husband material, definitely not father material. He had a lot of healing to do, as did I, but I didn't know that. But something happens when you get pregnant. It's almost like there's something that shifts in your brain, and I call it like the mommy brain, where you start thinking about your child. You start thinking differently because you have a mouth to feed. Like, you have a life that depends on you. You start thinking differently. But I wasn't strong enough to leave this guy. Next thing you know, I ended up having a miscarriage. And I should have left this man. But again, I was not strong enough. I still did not have the power of my voice. I didn't know that I was drowning in trauma. I was oblivious to all of that. So I stayed with this guy, and he was able to impregnate me 3 more times after that, which I opted for abortions. And that was one of the hardest things that I had to forgive myself for, because I was never told what the procedure was or what happens. I didn't know any of that. I just knew if you're pregnant and you don't want to be pregnant anymore, you get an abortion, and when you're done, you're not pregnant. Like, that's really all I knew. And that's why I talk about it in detail in my book, because I believe as women, we deserve to know what we're doing before we do it. We don't deserve to be lied to. We deserve to be fully informed. And, if there's a woman out there that learns exactly what happens and she still wants to do it, that's her choice, and that's it. It ends there. But I felt responsible to share it with women. It's like, you want to know what really happens in an abortion, what it really is? Read my book. It's just ugly. It broke my heart, and I would cry over it all the time, like seeing little babies, this and that, because I felt like I murdered my own babies. And granted, they were like, he was raping me. Like, I would tell him to stop. I'm like trying to get him off of me, and he would overpower me and impregnate me. And I let him do that 3 times. And that just goes to show how damaged my thought process was. So after that, the 3rd time I went to collect the money from him to do it, he didn't want me to do it. I feel like he was trying to trap me by getting me pregnant. And in the gas station where I met him, he actually had the money, and I remember him just throwing it in my face, and all the money fell on the floor. And I'm just standing there, pissed off that I have to go through this again. Embarrassed that he just threw this money in my face in the middle of a gas station. Like, I was crying. I cried as I bent down to pick up the money, and I went and I had my 3rd abortion. And I remember after that, I made a promise. I said, you know what? I need to be more careful. I can't keep doing this. And if I end up pregnant again, even though I'm being careful, I'm going to go above and beyond to be the best mother that I can be. And I believe I've been doing just that. I ended up getting my I ended up getting pregnant with my son in 2006, had him in 2007. But in 2006, I had already made up my mind to keep going and rise up in life, because I had this moment. I remember it being nighttime, and my boyfriend, we had just broke up. He kicked me out of the house, something like that. And I remember just wandering the streets, and I was sitting on the curb, and I was so fed up. I was so fed up with life. Like, nobody wants me. I'm alone wandering the streets. Every man that I meet abuses me in one way or another. My parents don't care. My older brother doesn't care. Nobody's here. So I screamed out into the night for somebody and I was cursing up a storm, come rape me, come kill me. I don't care. Take me out of my misery. I was calling out the homeless people on the street, like whoever it was. I wanted somebody come take me out of my misery, kill me, rape me. I don't care. I didn't care. I was done. I was so done. But I was met with the most monumental silence of my life. It spoke mountains. No cars honked, no cars drove by, no dogs barked, nobody opened their door to yell at me to shut up, like nothing, just silence. And then I realized, okay, Tiffani, nobody's here. What are you gonna do? You gonna lay down? Literally, are you gonna lay down and wait to die? Are you gonna get up, brush yourself off, and keep going? And as you can see, I kept going, otherwise I wouldn't be here. And ever since then, I put myself in school. I didn't graduate, I didn't get my my diploma, my high school diploma, but I did get my GED. And I might not have gone to the fanciest of schools, but I did earn my associates in computer-aided drafting and design, and then my bachelor's in construction management, and then my master's in project management, and my MBA. So even though I did not have a very good start, I made a choice. And I feel like all of us have a choice. No matter what we've experienced, we have a choice to either remain stagnant and let these continue as they are, which I could have done, or just given up, or you can brush yourself off and keep going. And that's what I did. One foot in front of the other. I kept going. And just because I had a baby doesn't mean I was the best mom in the world. I look back and cringe at some of the things I did. I would take my baby to Laughlin for the bike run. Why? Because that's something that my mom was into, and I wanted to hang out with her. So I would take him there, and I'm like, I wouldn't do that. I would not take my child. Like, I'm so above that now and beyond that, because I see things. It's like, why would I put my child in that environment? I would let my little one take pictures with women who have their bosom hanging out. Why am I doing this? And it was because I was still not very well in my mind. I was mentally ill, and I did not know that. I did not know I was mentally ill. No one told me that. Nobody told me that I was the way I was, or thinking or feeling, and it was because of my past. I was so oblivious. And it's no wonder my life was as crazy as it was. Why my boyfriend, my husband, who's now my husband, why we didn't get along in the beginning, because I used to say, because he has a toxic background himself, and I used to say we had no business getting together, because it's like two wrongs don't make a right. But I don't say that anymore, because now I see that we were brought together to heal each other, and we've actually done just that. And, we're now living in Utah. We have 3 beautiful children now, 3 beautiful boys that I love more than anything in this world. I monitor what they watch on TV. I monitor the songs that they listen to, the lyrics, what they're saying, the type of vibrational music that it is, because low vibration can actually affect us. It can promote disease. Whatever you speak from your mouth, words are powerful. We all know that, right? Words have power. So if you're listening to a song that says, I hate, or this or that, you are internalizing that, especially when you feel it, because I know that. I've been there, where you sing those songs. For example, I have on my back a tattoo. I have one tattoo, and it's on my back, and I got it done with a homemade tattoo gun when I lived with that first cousin. And the song that resonated with me the most it's a song by Nazareth, and it's called Love Hurts. And so every time that song would come on, I would blast it and I would feel it. And I was like resonating with it. And I look back and I'm like, why in the world was I doing that to myself? It's like I was deliberately cutting the stitches off of my wound to open it back up so I can refeel the pain. Why was I doing that to myself? I was oblivious. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are doing that and don't even realize it. But it's important. We have to start realizing and looking back at our past, because that's where the answers are. There's a lot of answers to why things are the way they are in the present, and those answers are in the past. And I know people are afraid to revisit their past because they don't want to feel those feelings. But what I've learned is that when we have an experience and it's traumatic for us, we assign emotions to that. And if we don't honor those emotions, whether it's crying, whether it's screaming out in the desert or punching bag or healthy, as long as you're not hurting somebody else, if we are not giving ourselves that space and time to honor our emotions, they will become suppressed in our subconscious. And then they will manifest into symptoms of mental illness. They can also manifest into physical ailments. And if you look at it, 1 in 5 adults live with the chronic mental illness. Chronic mental illness starts before, or 50% of chronic mental illness starts before 14 years of age. And if you consider my past, that makes total sense. You know, there's 2 billion people all over the globe that are nutrient deficient. You know, 85% of the world's population suffer from low self-esteem. Like, these are scary statistics. Suicide is the 4th leading cause of 15 to 19-year-olds. What is going on? You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like I have the answer. I truly believe God has been with me this entire time. I thought I was alone, but I wasn't. I was not. I was never alone. God was protecting me this entire time. And now I am a completely different woman. And I look at my past and I wrap it up in like love and forgiveness. I appreciate my past. I'm grateful for my past. And that might seem weird to say because it was very, very ugly. But you know what? If I didn't go through that, I never would be able to understand what other people go through. I wouldn't be able to help other people because I wouldn't understand. I could have the book smarts, sure, but there's something different to be said when you have that personal experience. Like, I feel I can easily see when other people are suffering. I think I got good at that because of everything I've gone through and what I've witnessed and all the research I've done and what I've learned. And that was what I learned, is that we have to honor those emotions and release them. Don't hold them inside. And if you notice that people tend to respond and react kind of crazy, I would ask you to give them grace and give them compassion, because you have no idea what happened to them and what they are still dealing with. They could still be carrying unresolved trauma and they're clueless as to how to help themselves. And that's why I believe my life is the way that it was. I experienced all this healing and I believe God guided me through it all. And it was so that way, not only could I use my story to inspire others, but I could also help other people with the know-how and to let them know that you have the power. Like you asked about my title, you have the ability. If you are a human being, you have that innate natural ability inside of you to heal. You know, if you're a believer, God says we were all made in the image of God. We are all like mini gods. You know, we have power and we have the ability. You know, this world was created with everything we need. Organic fruits and vegetables, herbs, healing herbs, everything in the world just simply being outside. We were never meant to sit under fluorescent lights for 8 hours a day. We were never meant to just remain indoors 24/7. We were not meant to live that way. We were not meant to eat foods that we have no idea what they're doing to our body, that are man-made. We were not meant for that. I mean, come on, there's there's ways to eat like sugar, for example, like people make caramel straight from sugar. There's zero health to that whatsoever, nothing healthy about that. But you can use dates and you can blend them and add vanilla to it, and it tastes like caramel. I would sell out when I would make those through my cosmic sweets business. Like there's ways, there's things that we have everything we need. And I feel like God is just calling me to spread this message with the world that it doesn't matter what you've gone through in life. You have the power to heal. It's really just all about getting back to simple living. Every day, focus on your mental, physical, which comes in two parts, nutrition and fitness. You cannot have one without the other, and your spirituality. And if you're not a believer, just simply going outside and being in nature, you're connecting spiritually, grounding, swimming in the ocean, and your physical health. You have to move your body. You have to. A stagnant body promotes disease. You have to move your body. People think about exercise like, oh, I have to go in the gym and lift heavy weights. No, you don't. You can walk, swim, play a sport, play with your kids at the park. Like there's so many things that you can do. And with our nutrition, the world really needs to relearn the world of nutrition. And I'm doing everything I can to teach people about that through my Cosmic Sweets page. Same thing with our home and hygiene products, all the toxins that are in there. It's like we are literally drowning ourselves in toxins. We're eating toxic food. We're putting our shampoo, the lotion, the makeup, the laundry detergent, your candles, the toxic candles, you name it. Think about that. And I try to educate people through that through my herbal potions business, because it all matters. Like we need to try our best to be as healthy as possible. And if that means you have to, change your entire schedule, so be it. That's what I did. I'm starting to break away from the mold. I don't care what society says. I care about what makes me feel good, what I believe and I know in my head is healthy for my children. I homeschool my children now because I'm grateful. I'm just going to say that I'm grateful that my children are not in public school. I'm just going to say that. Our children need to be protected. We think that our children are safe around family members, but the statistics for that are higher amongst those that are family members. So please protect your children, protect their eyes, protect their ears, praise your children, listen to your children, talk to them, give them affection, let them have a voice. And if you have a hard time doing that for your children, then that right there, my friend, is a clue that you could probably benefit from healing because there's something unhealed in you. And that's the reason why you have a hard time being that for your children. So I just want to let you all know, you guys, the life is yours and it's all a choice. You can make a choice to heal, or you can make a choice to remain where you are. By making the choice not to heal, you are making a choice. You're making a choice to accept your life as is, and it will never change unless you decide to make a change.
Amazing. I have goosebumps. And so throughout when you were talking and then throughout reading the book, there was a couple of things that always were, it was like a repeating thing, kind of like a pattern or like a message was to forgive your past and forgive yourself, have compassion, and to not let that pain bring you, or to not have that pain come into your present or your future because it's going to impact you. And that we have a choice to, basically it was a choice of perspective. So at what point was it in the moment of like silence when you realized, okay, I need to forgive myself? Or was there a different moment where that came to you where, okay, I have a choice to see this differently? Like everything that happened to me, I have a choice. I can see it as a way to help me help others. Like at what point did that kind of come to fruition for you?
It was when we moved from California to Utah. We moved because housing was really expensive. So we moved here. It's not the case now, but we moved here to buy our first house. And, my husband and I were already married. I had my 3 kids and we're thinking we're living the American dream. It's gravy. Everything's amazing. And then all of a sudden, here comes winter, winter blues. It's a real thing. I didn't know that. But it also triggered my depression that I thought I had escaped. And that's when I had another experience where I just decided to give up. I decided to give up, and I just laid in bed and I was like, what's the point? This whole time, my whole life, we've done this, I shouldn't feel this way. I'm done. I don't care anymore. And then my little baby comes walking in the room, my second, he comes in the room and he's like, why is mommy laying in bed? And that hit my heart so hard. And I was like, I cannot do this to my kids. They do not deserve to experience the aftermath of what other people did to me. It was their poor choices. My children don't deserve to experience anything from that. I need to be a better mother than mine was to me. My children deserve to have a healthy-minded mom. So that's when I got up and I said, okay. And I went on this massive quest and researched. And I didn't really know what I was looking for, but the words that stuck out to me were mind, body, and soul. And that's when I said, all right, fine. So every day I'm going to do something for my mental health, my physical health, and my spiritual health. And I was like, okay, so what do I do for my mental health? I was like, okay, I don't know. So I started researching. I learned about affirmations. I learned about meditation. So I started there. And those affirmations are really powerful. They really are. And that actually helped me to attend a female entrepreneur conference that was up north. And this was in January of 2019. And this was because I suffered from debilitating anxiety. So going there by myself was scary. Driving there by myself was scary. In the snow was scary. But here I am in my car playing my affirmations, so I could get there, and I did it. So I was proud of myself because I was like, wow, this stuff works. Like, I'm able to do things. And it was then that I met my book coach. And that's when I started writing my book. And that's when I experienced even more healing because I was going through everything. And it was like I had to create a timeline of my life in order to figure out everything that I had gone through. So I really believe it was that moment when my kids came into the room that kind of like jump started that need for healing, that I needed to do something. I had to, because it wasn't about me anymore. I have kids. I have a responsibility. It doesn't matter what I think, how I feel. I have a responsibility because I have kids and they simply do not deserve to experience any of that. And that's what I'm doing. And the best thing I could have ever taught my children is everything that I'm learning now. My children are allowed to have a voice. I teach them respect. Don't you be yelling at mommy, but you have a voice. What you think and how you feel, it matters to me. And it's something I never had. I hug and tell my kids I love them several times a day. I kiss them all the time. They're our future,
Yeah, for sure. And when you were going through like creating that timeline, writing your book, kind of reliving those experiences, how was that for you? Was it really hard? Do you find that it was hard to forgive yourself in some situations too?
Yeah, the forgiveness part was when I did a release ritual. That was when one of the modalities that I had experienced. It's a release ritual where, writing is therapeutic and you write everything out. And I'm a fast typer, so I typed everything out, everything my mom didn't do, all this stuff that she did. And then I realized in writing that I was honoring my emotions. I stated those affirmations that I appreciate and love all this stuff, or I wrapped this in love and forgiveness, and I burnt it and released it. And the next day I felt significantly lighter. But in that process, what happened is I started learning and realizing that my parents did the best that they could with the knowledge that they had at the time. So how can I be angry at them for not knowing? It's almost like me getting angry at my 2-year-old because he doesn't know how to read. Well, that's silly, right? He'd never learned that. So how is he supposed to know? And that's the way I looked at my parents. My parents, I look back, they did what they could. Like I remember my mom cooking and cleaning. She knew how to do that and she did it well. She used to comb my hair and stuff. There's things that they did. So I made a choice to focus on the good. You can spend all day thinking about, oh, my mom did this. My mom didn't do that. My dad, blah, 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 all this stuff. And think about how that makes you feel. It didn't make you feel good. It's a choice. What you focus on grows. So instead, I did the mind shift. I'm choosing to focus on the good that my parents did. My father instilled respect into me and the importance of education. And I truly believe that's the reason why back then in 2006, even though I was a mess, I knew about education because my father instilled that in me. So there's a lot that I could still attribute to my parents. And so it was easy for me to forgive them, just understanding all of that. And you know what? I'm an adult now. To point the finger at anybody else is really silly because I need to point the finger at myself. I'm an adult. I know better. Whether this, that happened, it doesn't matter. You're an adult now, you know better, do better. And that's what I live by. And the self-forgiveness was like when I mentioned earlier, how the abortions, that was really hard. Putting myself in harm's way all the time. I give myself grace and I'm able to forgive myself because I understand now that I was mentally ill, and I didn't know that. I was not being cared for. I was not being guided properly. And none of that was my fault. How could it be? Like it just simply wasn't my fault. So understanding these things that just helped. It was easy. I found it very easy to forgive after that because it's like, even all the men that raped me, all those men, you know what? Maybe some of them were raped themselves. That doesn't mean what they did to me is okay, but it helps to understand why people do what they do. And it usually stems from some sort of trauma that they're still carrying.
Yes. And oh my gosh, and it just goes to show how important it is to heal trauma, because so then we're not passing that on to someone else, or we're not inflicting that pain on someone else. So yeah, and even you said in your book too, something that really stood out was that we don't like blink an eye if someone has a broken bone or a bruise, or I don't remember exactly what you said, but like we take care of that. But like it's never mental health has never really been considered, or even in your situations, like it seemed like no one ever took the time to sit down with you and like look at your past, or ask you, or like say, hey, maybe she has a lot of trauma going on, like we need to work on her mental health. Like there was none of that.
Exactly.
It's frustrating. It's like it makes me angry because there's so many people out there too. And I think like a lot of times, like you talk about, it's a lot of things that happen in our past that is the trauma, whether we know it or not. And it really affects us in the future, whether we know it or not.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So is this message for like anyone specific? Like who are you speaking to when you're trying to share your story and you want to reach as many people as possible?
I'm really speaking to the person that is suffering from anxiety. You're living in a state of fear. You're afraid to do anything. You're depressed. You don't want to get out of bed. You just want to give up on life because it's like, what the point? Maybe you've tried and it just keeps slapping you in the face. Life keeps slapping you back down. You don't understand. You're just so confused. You have been hurt in the past. Maybe once, twice, 10 times. It doesn't matter. That does not matter. If you've experienced trauma, then it is important. It's very important, especially to you. So if you feel anything like that whatsoever, or if you notice even you're stressed out, you live your life in overwhelm and stress, and you are always yelling and hooting and hollering at your kids, you're always angry and you just don't know why, you're always reactive, you're very reactive to things, and you're just so quick. If you feel the need to abuse drugs and alcohol, if any of that is you, then I'm talking to you, and I want you to know that life can be better. There is a beautiful life that is waiting for you. It is there. You just need a little help, discovering your unique path to healing and happiness. And that is okay. There is nothing wrong with that. Don't look at anybody else and how well they're doing and how well they're not doing. None of that matters. What matters, what should matter to you is you. How are you doing? And when you start to become self-aware about why you do things the way that you do, you create that timeline, see what comes up for you, take that time out to hit that punching bag, go into the woods and scream, cry. Crying is not a weakness. I'm talking to you men out there. I'm sorry that society told you that crying is a form of weakness. It's exactly the opposite. It's a form of strength because it allows you to release that trauma that is heavy, that is holding you back from rising up, becoming the person that you were meant to be. Cry, let yourself cry. Get rid of that, because you do not deserve to be weighed down by your trauma. You do not deserve to not have an amazing life because of somebody else's poor choices. They're not thinking about you. They don't care. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done what they did. You need to focus on you. You're an adult. You have a responsibility, especially if you're a parent. But even if you're not a parent, just by being a person in this world, you have a responsibility to become the best person that you want to become, so we can make this world a better place. As they say, be the change you wish to see in this world.
Hell yes. Seriously, and I'm a firm believer that we are not given more than we can handle. Like, and so I feel like that it's so true. And like, you are a true testament to that. It's amazing. So I appreciate you sharing your story. But I do have I have two questions. So first of all, where can people find you? Where can they find your book? How can they reach out to you? Or if they want to work with you, how can they find you?
Best place to reach me is at tiffanipatlán.com. I have links to all the work that I do, social media, and to buy the book, or you can visit unlockingyourabilitytoheal.com to purchase a signed copy by me with a little thank you gift. And it's also available on Amazon.
Amazing. And I highly recommend everyone get that book. It's anyone and everyone can benefit from what you share, for sure. This perspective, the choice, forgiveness, all of that. And then my last question is, so my podcast is called Flow with the Grow. So I just love hearing everyone's different answers when it comes to this question. But when you hear that, what comes to mind for you?
To me, the first thing that comes to my mind is to don't allow the hard times to prevent you from excelling in life. Because when you realize that life is a series of up and downs because they're all teaching us a lesson, then that will allow you to grow. So flow with it, flow with the grow.
Yes, I love that. Oh, well, thank you so much for talking, being so vulnerable and just real and raw and sharing your story. And I'm so glad that we connected, and thank you so much for all of this.
Oh, you bet. I really appreciate this. And I hope that, somebody listening out there is going to rise above, because you deserve to. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. Thank you.